Salah Rahman Rahim. I am happy that one other time I am with the brothers, sisters, and friends of the Ahl al-Bayt Islamic Society of New England and ZIC MIT Shia Muslim Association. As Dr. Masalai said, this is the 8th lecture in the series Maryam in the Quran. Yes, before the break, we were discussing about genealogy of Mary, and we will go back around it briefly to refresh and add one other dimension to it. But also then we will discuss this verses 34 to 40 of Surah Mary 19, and then kind of will occupy most of the lecture, and then let's see how much time we have after that. But before that, I want to before we starting the lecture, I want to use the congratulate occasions we have. We had the birthday of the ninth Imam Muhammad Taqi Jawad al-Aim yesterday on 10th of Rajab, and we have the birthday of Imam Ali alayhi salam on 13th of Rajab. Tuesday, some people also start one day earlier. So I congratulate these two occasions to our dear friends. I know you have had separate programs for that, so I don't dwell on that more, with the prayer that we have peace and happiness everywhere from Gaza to California, Los Angeles, and the people. The suffering is stops for everybody and everybody there. So as traditionally we were doing this, start these lectures, I will start by reciting these two verses. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ضرب الله مثلا للذين آمنوا امرأة فرعون إذ قالت رب ابن لي عندك بيتا في الجنة ونجني من فرعون وعمله ونجني من القوم الظالمين ومريم ابنة عمران التي أحصنت فرجها ونفخنا فيها من روحنا صدقت بكلمات ربها وكتبه وكانت من القانتين. So this, as we said, these two verses are really first related to Hazrat Maryam, but also explain why we these have a series, because she was the role model for all the believers. She and the wife of Pharaoh, Asiya, were the role model for all the believers. With the last few lectures, we discussed Annunciation to Mary, that the Gabriel or the angel tell her that she will have a son, the birth of Jesus, her son, and also the issue of nativity. So we had all these discussed in the previous lectures. As usual, these are the list of the surahs and verses which are related to Mary alayhi salam. These are listed chronologically. We have been discussing these verses, especially 22, 23 to 33, 34 in the last few weeks. Today we go to 34, 40. I will explain why. Even some of it maybe is not listed here. And then with finishing that, we kind of will move to maybe verses 42, 43, Al-Imran. But still maybe have one more lecture even. So this is the order, as I said, this is the order of revelations of these verses chronologically, and this is the order we are going to discuss. Today, we are going to discuss these verses, which I made it red because in one sense, if you read them, they are not as directly related to Mary. Because there are many verses, there are a few verses in Quran which is related to Hazrat Isa, and then sometimes the name of Mary is in them, Isa ibn Maryam. But we didn't discuss them because just the name is there. It's not per se related to Hazrat Maryam. And these verses are more or less like that. But we'll see, because there is a controversy regarding the commentary of these verses, and then it's related to the whole structure of Surah Maryam, especially this part, 16 actually, I have to say, from 16 to 21, then 22 to 33, chapter 19, and the continuation, which is some of the Western scholars have raised. We discussed this. And also, as we will see, this here it ends when Jesus as a child in cradle talks as a miracle and says some sentences regarding himself. A continuation of that sentences with a break, you see it here. So that's the reason today we will discuss these verses. Last lecture at the early part, I went through some reasons or motivations, or at least some kind of new or different problem or points we want to address in this whole lecture series. So I had a longer introduction in the last lecture, 7th lecture. So we discussed what we want to see, what is Family of Imran or Family of Jesus. We want to discuss that issue of Mary being called sister of Aaron, which I intend to do it today, but if we not have time, will be the beginning, the first thing next lecture. What would be the true Christianity, where the one doesn't believe in divinity of Jesus and other stuff? What happened to them, or who were representing them? And then we set some of these questions, especially this first question is related to the character of Joseph the Carpenter. We discussed 4 or 5 verses that somehow maybe be related to him. In Qur'an, indirectly somehow mentioning him. And then we have some other related thing, maybe a few lectures from now, that this will be related, interestingly, to 12th Imam Mahdi, because in the Shia narration is that her mother, Nargis Khatoon, was descendant of one of the disciples of Jesus. That's this common understanding. Simon or Shamun the Cephas, which in Arabic is called as Cephas, Shamun Cephas. But my argument, my conjecture is, no, this is a mistake. It must be Simon the Clophas, the brother of Jesus, and one of his successors, deputies, after him, the leader of the church. And this is a mistake which Muslim scholars also done as a result of similarity of the names and the influence of Christianity, because anything they learned was to Christianity, but this is Pauline Christianity. Like whatever you learn, somebody learns from, for example, Ahlul Bayt or the other side, Bani Umayyah is from Sunnis or Salafis, So now they're really admiring Muawiyah. They go, so they have a very positive image. So if somebody which is non-Muslim go learn from them, through them, you get things very mixed up. Even if you go to the history of Christianity, was a deliberate confusion is produced between these two characters. Even the text we have somehow at early stages. So this we will see maybe later on, maybe closer when we get to 15 of Shaban. This could be an interesting topic, connected two topics, and we'll discuss it. But all of this we discuss on the genealogy of Mary to address this one and question 1 and 4, and which we then related to question 3 and 5, and also 2. The genealogy of Mary somehow cut across all of these. So we see this is the most important slide we had last, and one of the most important one was, this is the 2 genealogy given for Jesus in the 2 canonical synoptic gospels. One was the Gospel of Matthew, and one is the Gospel of Luke. Now, if you look here it says line of Joseph. So Gospel of Matthew, as we discussed it, give the lineage of Joseph the Carpenter. And then this would start essentially from Abraham downward. And then Luke gives a different lineage. At the first reading, apparently, actually, Luke is also giving the lineage of Joseph the Carpenter. but they're very different in some stages. So, and if you go to still maybe the common ordinary person going to the church, they think it is like that. They think, okay, they're the lineage of Joseph the Carpenter, the stepfather of Jesus. But the bigger problem we said was that, okay, what this lineage has to do with the Jesus? If this guy is not related, is the biological father of Jesus, and no man is the biological father of Jesus. So what that lineage is related? Is the relation of Joseph Carpenter to Jesus is like any other man in that era, or even any other person to that time. And then some of these Christian scholars from then until now want to resolve this because not only first the whole lineage of Joseph the Carpenter is irrelevant to Jesus, like the one given Matthew. Although, I mean, formally maybe, that's you have to go to custom, okay, stepson, but because they really they want to claim be Davidic, they need to be not the stepson, the really lineage of David. You're some guy maybe adopted son of a Sayyid. By being adopted son, you don't become Sayyid. At least you need to have that lineage biologically, that gene biologically. And then you go, and because what I emphasize is that because we'll see, I'm going to use a scholar, a famous scholar article, but he's very typical church scholar, and then he still thinks that two lineages are Joseph, and a little bit second. But as you see, but this is again, I take it from Christian sources. There are some, like the one I was discussing, which is this view is more spreading, more understood, more reflected because of the work of modern scholarship, or maybe there are fractions in the church. I don't know exactly who's who in this regard. That they notice, okay, the lineage in the Matthew is for the Joseph, but the second one is in Luke is for Mary, which is good, which is better. I mean, if it wasn't, they're very contradictory. I mean, nothing matched, the number doesn't match, the name doesn't match, and they really have headaches to explain. So one is Joseph, one is Mary, and then one, as I said, for Matthew starts from Abraham going down to Jesus. In Luke, it goes from Jesus to Mary, but this name of Mary is really played with, is hidden, because they think they don't want to go the lineage from woman, because they think it's from the man. But in Islam is going through Hazrat Fatima, Sadats are going through Hazrat Fatima. Not all descendants of Imam Ali are Sayyid, the one through Hazrat Fatima. So then this goes up, and then goes to David, to Abraham, to Noah, and Adam. Okay, and we discuss all this. The important thing, which now, and as I said, there are some ideas that these are list parallel, and you see the numbers do not match also. So this could be also another problem. Despite this is Mary, despite this is Joseph, maybe the Joseph one was not known accurately. Some steps were missing. But okay, well, they thought at some stage maybe there were intermarriages between the two lineages, which is possible, but this is farther stage. But the more important thing for all these conclusions we get, and I kind of agree with the Professor James Faber. If you go to YouTube search, there is lots of ideas from him. He's a recent scholar, just retired. He's 40 years work on this. He's University of North Carolina, so he has lots of books, lots of videos. Still working. Just retired last year, April, but still working. So you can see his discussions, and then what he brings to our attention is this. Both of the Gospels want to emphasize the Davidic lineage of Jesus. And we said why they want to do that, because according to Jewish belief, the Messiah, or the ruler of Israel, or the royal or kingly lineage is David. So all the kings of Israel should be the lineage of David. And then because they have Messiah's understanding, a worldly ruler, so the Messiah, which they thought Jesus is, should be David. So first, because those guys who went through the Joseph the Carpenter, they because Jesus didn't have any father, they want to show Joseph is the lineage of David. And then the other group noticed, okay, Joseph is not much related to Jesus. So they go to Mary. At least they know Mary. They are a little bit hiding it. There is a woman in the middle, Mary, but they show the lineage of Mary to David, which is true. Both of these are of Davidic lineage. They could descend from David, like Sadat Husseini, Sadat Hassani. But there is one interesting thing is that according to Jewish tradition, although the important line was Solomon and his children, but at some stage, one of these descendants became polytheist and was cursed by one of the contemporary prophets. And then he kind of was cursed. Part of the curse was that the blessing of God has gone away from your son, your lineage, and then none of your children will be or deserve to be the king of Israel's rulers of Israel or anymore. But this other lineage, which is more the shadow sideline, doesn't have that curse. So the good thing at this is if a true lineage of Jesus is through Mary, Mary is through that lineage, which is very pure and clean, mostly they're ordinary people going to David and going up. Okay, that was one part. But the other part, which is, I think, as interesting and important, because we saw they have two lineages. One lineage of David, which is the son of Jacob, which was Judah. So that 12 tribes of Israelites, the son of Jacob, Judah. That was David from that lineage. That was a royal or king lineage. But besides that, we had a priestly lineage. And the one who were allowed to do the priestly duties, serve in the temple, the Jerusalem temple, do the sacrifices, do the prayers. No, we don't have any of these in that sense in Islam. We don't have chosen people. We don't have nor priests. We don't have intermediary between God and us. And Sadats are respected, but do not have any special, very special privilege except Homs, which is a kind of respect to the Prophet and so on. But the point is this, putting it aside, Mary has in this lineage a lot of names which are related to priestly lineage, which are descendants of Levi, another sign of Jacob, or descendant of Aaron. Aaron and Moses were descendants of Levi, which I'm not showing it here, but I had one slide last lecture. So interestingly, because of intermarriage, all these names which have the same derivative of Matthew, like Mathat, Mathia, or Mathia again, there are a few of them. If you go all the way, we can find it. Means Mathat, another one here, 6 or 7, I think, if you go, this one, shows intermarriage between the lineage of Aaron and some of these Davidic lineage. And the mixture was enough to allow or consider Mary's family to have the priestly, can become priests, have enough lineage in them to be considered, for example, Sadat or descendant of Aaron, or to be allowing to have priestly duty. So this dual lineage is very interesting thing. That Mary has a lineage from Aaron and Moses, and also lineage from David and Solomon. These are two separate branches of these Israelites, and Mary kind of is descended from them, and accordingly, Jesus and this family, which included Zechariah, I think, to some sense, John the Baptist, Yahya, and also the brothers of Jesus, James the Just, which I think if we can, we're going to have a lecture about him, because this is important to connect that mother of Zaman. I put it closer to that time. So this idea of dual lineage, so it's important. So till now I reviewed, and let's go through these slides because I know it's taking a little time. This will be important for the other lectures. So what appears likely is that Mary is of mixed lineage. Like Luke only names the male line from David down to Mary, but a large number of priestly names indicate that there were likely important Levite women. These are priestly lineage. Moving Mary into the Davidic line along the way. It is a pattern that goes all the way back to Aaron, brother of Moses, the very first Israelite priest. He did, or his children did too. Aaron of the tribe of, he himself, Aaron of the tribe of Levi, married a princess of the tribe of Judah. named Elisheva or Elizabeth. So in this kind of they're close together, some connection. And okay, this also could be important when we discuss the Isha of yeah, is very important when we're discussing why the Quran have called Mary Ukht Harun. A tribe of Judah named Elisheva or Elizabeth, and then which is a tribe of Aaron, but we know the aunt of Mary also was called Elizabeth. And then the important thing, and this is new. I mean, for example, the author I'm going to show you, Sebastian Brock, which is a very great scholar in the Syriac language, ancient Christian language of Syriac, another dialect of Aramaic. He wasn't aware of these studies, I think, or at least his attitude is very different. But because after the discovery of Dead Sea Scrolls in 1948, some of those old books are deciphered, and many were not published until middle 1990s. At least there was a lawsuit to force them to publish it. So we noticed this idea, which is not really known or commonly known. Christian and Jews subsequently have come to focus on the Messiah the same way we are focusing on Mahdi. That's the issue of the Messiah. According to Quran, Isa is Masih too, is a Messiah. So in what sense is Messiah not his first coming? Not because the Paul says he went on the cross and to ransom on our sin, people's human beings' sins because of the fall, but because of his second coming. If it is true, or it is believed that he will come with Mahdi, prayer behind the Mahdi, because of this second coming, become Messiah. Or it could have been Messiah for the first time also, but not because going on the cross, but usually he would be understood if it doesn't, second coming is not true, which Christians believe and some Muslim hadiths said, then we have to a little bit differently interpret the Messiah. So that's another topic, maybe. Not sure what to discuss it now, but let's go with the basic idea. The Christians believe, we also believe that Jesus will come at the end of time. So in that sense, he become a Messiah, and Jews are waiting for the one Messiah to come. And anyway, same way among Muslims that some believe, like Shias believe, Mahdi, the Messiah, is born already. The Sunnis say he will born at the end of times. Okay, and then Messiah is a single figure of Davidic line who was ruled as the king in the last day. I mean, the way I said it, it could be that Davidic lineage is Imam Mahdi, because the whole idea I'm pushing for is that Nargis Khatoon is descendant of Mary through the Simon the Clophas. Then Mary definitely have Davidic lineage. Her son would have Davidic lineage, and Nargis Khatoon in that sense have David lineage. So there are some women in the middle, but that could be the case. And yet, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, we encounter a devoutly religious community, usually identified with the Essenes, who expected the coming of three figures, a prophet like Moses and the Messiah of Aaron and Israel. Because these texts are very old. We never had any Bible or anything before Islam. The earliest one left was about 1000 AD. But these are going to the first century, and in those texts, in the community which is called Essenes, that naming maybe not accurate, but they look into three figures, and one prophet like is definitely, I think is most probable Hazrat Muhammad, and then the Aaronic and Israelite Messiah. Okay, there are two figures. The way I explain it, both Hazrat Mahdi and Jesus, both could be Aaronic and Davidic Messiah, or maybe one is more prominent or one take the role, but both have the lineage in this way through their mothers. Both through their mothers are both lineage of Aaron and David. Okay, and then we saw this where the comment. If you go to Dead Sea Scroll Community Roll, this is one of the longer books coded like that, chapter 9, verses this. It tells them that you shall follow the rules of the community. They're very religious community, as it was instructed to you till these three guys came. If these three guys came, then okay, they can change the rule. But okay, that was review of what we did. I maybe take a little bit more time. I try to go faster, but there is something we should know about the genealogy of Mary because I cannot. I had to hint to you there are complications always in these stories, so it's not done deal, but also is interesting in itself. So Sebastian Brock is a very famous scholar in the Syriac studies, and then he did a lot of work. But this is just one article from him. But accidentally, he's touching on the genealogy of Mary, and in a manuscript called Sinai Syr.16. So they find it, I think, in Sinai Peninsula or somewhere like that, which we know they are very old churches, Christian monasteries. They are still continuously being there from early centuries of AD. And then because of the desert weather, things survive. Because it's dry desert weather, we have many papyri survived. So although this maybe, yeah, okay, we'll let him see the time. Now here we will see some differences in the naming. Remember the naming of the Mary, that's what I forgot to. The father of Mary was called Joachim, but that Jehovah name of God can become Elohim too. You know, we have two names for God, Allah and Jehovah. They're also close, but like say Allah and Khuda. So, for example, Khuda Hafiz in Farsi means God protect you, save you. Now there is a trend by mostly Taliban or Salafi ways do not like Farsi words, so they push people do not say Khuda Hafiz when they separating. Say fi Aman Allah. So Aman Allah and Khuda Hafiz kind of are similar, but you change the word to Arabic. So Elohim and Joachim are the same. Or a little bit, you know, there are K and B. We go to the Hebrew word. Joachim is the English word. Yahuwah, Yavim, you know, if you go to, we discussed that. So people have shown that how Joachim could be end up Eli or Eli. The same, you have James, Jacob become James, and Jacob become Jacob and James. It's not very clear, or, you know, Elizabeth become Beth, or Robert become Bob. You know, some of it at first we don't see how Robert can become Bob, but so these Eli or Eli or Elohim or Joachim are kind of that's the difficulty was, and the wording was somehow they played it such a way this become which wasn't clear, you know, for a not very scholarly eye or doesn't know the languages. That's the people were confused. This is genealogy Mary or Joseph again. But now you see at least these Christian sources agree this is genealogy Mary, and that Professor Tabor argued, and I agree with it. So this look one with genealogy Mary and the name of Joachim. So remember we had the Gospel of James. The name was Joachim, and the father was Joachim, mother was Anna. Okay, now we are going to see a new tradition, which in this is referent, and give two names, but I don't think these are per se contradictory. But what is emphasizing is the one I was up pushing. More the names, I mean, whatever the names are, the lineage. This other tradition, this other alternative parallel tradition, which is also ancient, emphasizes a dual lineage of Mary. It is not known. If you go to the church, they know the Davidic lineage of Jesus. And then I don't know if they comprehend the Davidic lineage is through Joseph or Mary, Joseph the Carpenter. Joseph the Carpenter doesn't make sense, so it should be through Mary. Most of the people may don't know that, okay, that genealogy look is not Joseph the Carpenter, it's Mary. But rarely, very few are aware or conscious of also priestly lineage or Aaronic lineage. But this source, in the exact naming is different, but an emphasis of dual lineage, which is the whole main argument we have, is important. It is the same. But also the name, I think there is a way to harmonize them. Okay, I mean, this is the text I just showed you. Is a Syriac, you know, it's some alphabet, which you can see some similarities, but they're different with the Arabic alphabet. But it sounds closer to Armenian and so on. Okay, this passage it is in this manuscript, which is old. It says like this. It says Eleazar, which you will see in this genealogy was here. This guy. So according to this genealogy is great-grandfather of Joseph the Carpenter. So this genealogy, which I'm showing to you, also mix the two families at earlier stage. Make Mary and Joseph relative, which I think could be true. That was very common practice. People married together, the same family, and also this is the virtuous family, so on. But let's see, just to know, what I say, even this parallel tradition emphasized in dual lineage. So Eleazar had two children. One is called Mathan, and the other Joachim. So that Joachim is, we don't have. Joseph is descended from Mathan, Joseph the Carpenter, and Mary from Joachim. So their great-grandfather is the same. Their grandfathers were brother. I will show you the diagram. And Eleazar's son Mathan begot Jacob, and Yaqub, and the Yaqub begot Joseph, which is usually Jacobs have Josephs. So Joseph, Jacob, Jotham, Eleazar. I will show it to you. And Eleazar, son Jotham, begot Zadok, and Zadok begot Mary. And Zadok is the name of Joachim. But Zadok, it is the same as Sadok, righteous or truthful and sometimes just. And in Hebrew, this relative connotation changed. Zadok is Sadok. Sadaqa, they have the Sadaqa, which we have. For charity, they have the same roots they have. So this could be the title. So it could be Joachim the Sadok. Like Imam Jafar Sadok, his name was Jafar, but his title was Sadok. You call him Imam Sadok, but his real name is Jafar, okay? So this could be Joachim the Zadok. So this is a common title, righteous man, like Saleh, okay? And then Dina, Dina apparently is off from Anna, but you see even here it mentions, on one of the parts, they mention that Anna, Dina can change, especially when he's not married, after they marry. So now the father and mother are called Zadok and Dina. Here, now read this carefully. I think the text, it says what we were saying. The diagram is not right. Look, it says Zadok begot Mary by his wife Dina, who is the sister of Elizabeth. This who is returning to Dina. At this we were believing that the Elizabeth, the mother of the John the Baptist, the wife of Zechariah, was aunt of the Mary and the sister of her mother. But in the diagram, I think you see that they draw Elizabeth, sister of Mary. It's very hard to believe Mary have any other children, because they got the only children they have, or the children they have, by very miracle, as we read it. And they have to go, wow, okay, please give us the children. And I think they died sooner. So I think, I don't know why the scholar maybe he forgot, he didn't notice the diagram is wrong, but the diagram is wrong. I will show it to you. For this reason, it is written that the angel said to Mary, behold, Elizabeth, your relative, has conceived. Even here it says, not your sister, your relative. That is the sister of your mother. I mean, these are explicit. I think the diagram was mixed. Now, Mary, from her father's side, was from the tribe of Judah. This is important. Okay, we know the tribe of Judah makes you to be Davidic lineage. But from her mother's side, from the tribe of Levi. If you're a Levite, you can have priestly duty. Then the tribes were intermingled after the return of the Babylonian captivity. These are all written in that Syriac text, which is ancient. Babylonian captivity through divine providence, so that our Savior might be being as both of them. That is a dual lineage. This is not emphasized at all in New Testament or even the Gospel of James. In order that through his kingship, the kingship of Judah might become ineffective, and through his priesthood, the same would apply to the priesthood of Levi. I mean, the conclusion is that, okay, he have both nullified those two lineage. But I mean, I think the word, actually, the article also discussed, instead of ineffective, because this is still a comment of some person written a few centuries after Jesus, is that make them satisfied or fulfilled both in him. I mean, you can look at it like that. It is not said that he arose from Judah, On his father's side, for his mother's genealogy, according to custom of Hebrews, comes from the husband, not for the wife. Again, it mentions that why people mostly talk about Judah, because mostly lineage go to the father and so on, and then sometimes lineage goes to the husband, not the wife. But this double lineage is this ancient text. In fact, I think there are some discussions, but because I want to go, let me show the diagram at first. This is the diagram, but as I said, this part is okay. Joseph, son of Jacob, son of Mathan, son of Eliezer. Now it says this Eliezer is somehow the genealogy of Mary. Mary, the son of Zadok, which is Joachim, Joachim, Eliezer. Dina, his wife. But Elizabeth should up here. Elizabeth should be the sister of Dina. Elizabeth should be up here, and Zechariah, John the Baptist, another branch. Not here, not the children of Zadok and Dinah, but I think here. That's the part. Look, there have been other genealogies which emphasize this dual nature, but or maybe I have to say other genealogies, because you have two new names now, Zadok and Dina, which use these names, but then gives different. So these names has its own tradition, but they're different. Here we have Joachim and Anna, but we have this Zadok, Dina, but the person called Dina. So you see that sometimes some mixing will happen in the names. So I'm thinking the two genealogies are not very separate, and it's possible that Zadok is Joachim, but I don't want to go through that. This is a very technical, scholarly, and these are all ancient ones. They become complicated. It's a thing, so we don't need to go through that. There are some comments which I don't think we need to go through that. That's the only. The only thing I have to say, there were two groups, it seems. For example, the Armenian ones are more interested to emphasize this dual lineage, and they want the lineage be through exactly biological. Because one way to say Jesus could take the priesthood functions, you say, okay, the whole system changed, which is actually Paul says, but preferably they wanted to say, okay, despite we have a new religion, but it's still Jesus, even from the Jewish perspective, could function both. So Armenian old texts are mostly in that direction. The Syriac ones actually interested me, mostly the other side of it. I think I stop here, but just I will just read this part, which is kind of summarized. A speculation concerning the parents of Mary first surfaced in maybe the Gospel of James, but we also discuss the new theory says Gospel of James also is really based on the earlier Gospel of Mary itself, and this must be, we discussed earlier, which set the mainstream tradition of naming them as Joachim and Anna. All the Joachim and Anna as the parents of Mary came dominate the later tradition, both East and West. They were not the only names to be accorded to them. And then, as we said, this tradition of Zadok and Dina are there. But I'm thinking maybe Zadok is a title, and Dina, look, as you say, again, his mother is called both Hannah and Dina. And these maybe some stages they explain, again, maybe it was like Elizabeth and Beth. They're not very different, but the two names are there. So I'm not going anymore to this. This text only, we have to say that, okay, the manuscript we have, people first say 6th century, then 7th century. Now it's believed as maybe 8th century. 8th century makes it after Islam. But I don't think this is a topic Islam may want to influence some guy changing the idea. I don't know. But the other thing they argue is that although we don't have earlier manuscript of, this one we have, which is written by somebody and mentioned these sentences we read. Maybe now we have to say early 8th century, just, the first 100 years after Islam, the first or second century of Islam. But as I said, the roots of debates goes at least to the 4th century. Whatever the date of this manuscript, it seems likely the tradition it preserves concerning Mary ancestry and Christ Levitical priesthood as Christ Levitical priesthood has much earlier roots, and interest in the latter half of the 4th century can clearly be seen in the commentary of the Ancestor, one famous translation of Bible. But the Syriac text provides objections to Mary Davidical ancestry, while the Armenian translation promotes it. So, okay, what is the conclusion? Is this: Dead Sea Scrolls talk about Jews are looking the two messiahs, Davidic and Aaronic. Then we said, if go to the lineage of Mary, and then we'll look what this Professor Tabor and many other modern scholarship, really recent scholarship Christianity says. It says Mary lineage has both. They can do priestly duties, but this idea of both lineage, both Davidic and Aaronic lineage, royal and priestly, is not new, is ancient, and you see old manuscript of it, discussion of it, that some people were talking about it. And I think we can accept it because then, I think, as I said, some of the discussion later we do will also be helpful. I think I'll stop here. Just let's see the first one. I said, unfortunately, the diagram, the Brooke made doesn't match the sentences, and the one that really matches the sentences, what we know, that Elizabeth is the aunt of Mary, and the most probably sister of Dina, or Dina. Other name is Anna, and Zadok is Joachim. Okay, I think this finishes the whole genealogy if we want to later come back. Now, so the second part, or the main part of the lecture today, is this. Look, we were looking at Surah Maryam, and then one of the things we saw, the rhyme it has, except the first phrase, Zakariya, Khafiya, Shabiya, Waliya. Okay, we go forward, and then we went forward to, again, Atiya, Shai'a, Saviya, Shia. And then the first 15 verses about Hazrat Yahya and Zakaria. And then we have from verse 16, Hazrat Maryam himself. Again, we have the same. So first 15 verses, one story, although very related, Hazrat Zakaria and Yahya. Then from verse 16, the story of Hazrat Maryam starts in the Surah Hazrat Maryam. So again, we have Sharqiya, Tabiya, Tabiya, Zakiya, Badiya, the rhyme, the word, Lafziya. Okay. Then Maksiya, Mansiya. Then we go to the one I read last lectures, Basiya, Mansiya. Okay, again, it's repeated. Nabiya, number 30, and then 31, Dhaya, Shaqiya. And then even Hazrat Isa says, "Assalamu alayya yawma waladat, yawma amutu, yawma abasahaya." So this is what this sentence says. Look, Hazrat Masih is saying when he's born, when the people come to Mary and say, "Oh, ya akhta Harun, ma kana abuka." Okay, I touched something. Do you hear me, Salih? If sure, if everything is okay. Anyway.
What did you say, Dr. Qadusi?
I touched something, a sound came. I just want to know I have not disrupted anything you guys are hearing.
No, things are fine. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So look, here, remember that people come and say, "Oh, sister of Aaron, your father was not an evil man, nor was your mother unchaste." They're actually pointed to him, it means to Jesus. They said, "How can we speak to one who is yet a baby in the cradle?" He said, "Indeed, I am a servant of God. He has given me the book and made me a prophet." But all of these sentences, the rhyme is correct. Rhyme is the same. Correct though. فأشارت إليه قالوا كيف نكلم من كان في المهد السبيا قال إني عبد الله أعطاني الكتاب وجعلني نبيا قالوا كيف نكلم من كان في المهد السبيا قال إني عبد الله أعطاني الكتاب وجعلني نبيا وجعلني مباركا أينما كنت وأوصاني بالصلاة والزكاة والدعية and to be good to my mother, and he has not me built and wretched, or he has made me blessed wherever I may be, and he has enjoined me to maintain the prayer and to pay the zakat as long as alive. And then the last sentence is peace to me the day I was born and the day I die and the day I rise alive. Okay. But then after 33, when we go to 34, the rhyme changes. And the topic also changes a little bit. Look, that Jesus was talking before, it was a story of Mary as a narrative story. But now this is as like we see usually Quran, we had it in Surah Al-Kahf too, other places we discussed the issues of God, that God in the middle of the stories, even the same stories, has some conclusions, some interpolative sentences get the conclusions, because these stories are really told to get these conclusions. As we said, Quran is not is more a theology book, but the stories are there to help the theology understanding. So God says, Maryam. Okay, this is what we want to discuss today, so I'm reading it. And a little bit we go to commentary from Tafsir Al-Mizan, but I will say what the problem is, and then we'll discuss that. So God says, maybe I read the English translation, but look, the first thing you should know, the rhyme changes. Yamtaruna, Yakuna, then we have Mustaqim, Azim, but again, you see these two rhymes also changed. And then Mubin, okay, which is different. And then we have Yomenun and Mubin, maybe they rhyme, but it's a little bit. And then Yorjaun. So mostly Yorjaun and Yomenun, they go rhyme together, 40 and 39. 38 is a little bit separate, but you may want to get it. I mean, sometimes Mubin and Azim, other than N and M are different. We discussed it in the whole fetch. They can match together out of the different letters, Mubin, Azim, and then Mustaqim. Okay, but they're very different. Yakul and Teru from Hayya and Shaqiya and so on. So we have a break here, but then things goes back. When this middle commentary finishes, Quran is going to narrate the story of Ibrahim and other problems, go back to the same rhyme which started from verse 1 to 33. واذكر في كتاب إبراهيم إنه كان صديقا نبيا إذ قال لأبيه يا أبت لم تعبد ما لا يسمع شيئا and Sabiya and Asiya and so on. Okay, this for itself I don't think is a big deal. We have few verses which are commentary, the rhyme is changed, and they don't have even one unique rhyme, from 34 to 40. And then when Quran goes back to narrating the stories of prophets, pick up the same rhyme. So so you see the form actually matches the topic. But I'm turning the story, for example, it could be some musical, So you do the musical in the movie, and the guy stops, even the musical or theater, and talk normally, and then go to the musical back, when the musical continues. So something like that, the rhyme is there, and then topic a little bit change, and you some sentence said, and then going back the same style of narrating the life of prophets, which has 6 or 7 of them mentioned, we take the same rhyme. But this Western scholarship, which you guys, especially our suspicious and some of the Christian missionaries, they want to find a catch. Oh, these parts, they start to say, okay, these parts are separate. These parts are added later. These parts were not originally from the Quran. And then they start, oh, these must be added much later after the Prophet Muhammad. This must be added at the time of conquest of Jerusalem, or because, and then we have the discussions about those. I don't know, unfortunately, the Farsi maybe that this revisionist view that Quran maybe was really canonized or written even or codified or compiled in the time of Abdul Malik Marwan. The radical one was even later, close to time of Mahmud, but then the less radical was Abdul Malik Marwan. But then recently, because all the manuscripts and all the carbon dating against their view, now we have two views. One is the more traditional one, which is the Quran was closed, even if not the time of Prophet, at least the time Muslims said by the time of Osman. Even the secular Western scholars accept that, because all indicates the Quran is fully closed, canonized by the time Muslim tradition said Osman produced one unified copy. But then the more revisionist version, which we are going to see some of the reviews today, say, okay, we accept there was Prophet Muhammad, some of the Qur'ans of Prophet Muhammad, but we believe there was an open book. They want to make it similar to Christian canon, which the canonization happened 300 years after Jesus. And then, okay, maybe it's finalized in time of Abdul Malik. But they never find a good example inside the text to this happen. I will explain some caveats, but then they start to say, okay, this is rhymes different, and then but they have some arguments. There are some interesting features here. One argument is this: if but okay, maybe before doing the argument, let me read this part now continuously as a translation of it. Read the verses, and then there is one feature in it, and I will explain. Okay, I mean, still, when they raise questions, sometimes we learn something more too. So the verses start at 34. It says, that is Jesus, son of Mary, a word of the real, concerning whom they are in doubt. So God says, ذَلَكَ عِيسَى ابْنُ مَرْيَمَ قَوْلَ الْحَقِّ الَّذِي فِيهِ يَمْتَرُونَ. Although the translator has some comments here, some who will see we discuss Allah by choosing the words this way. I have choose one. Here, the Arabic doesn't say kalamata. Although qawl and kalama is hard to translate differently in English, but we have to see his qawl. So it says, that is Jesus, son of Mary, a qawl, a word of the real, concerning whom they are in doubt. قول الحق الذي فيه يمترون. Okay, we have to see. But and then it is not for God to take a son. It is not for God to take a son. Immaculate is he. When he decides on a matter, he just says to it be, and it is. And Jesus said. Now, this is interesting. This verse 636 is, at least in this translation, and that's what Allah said, is the continuation, the speech Jesus is giving. So previously, when we stopped at 33, we were not accurate in the sense that its sentences has not been finished. But God has inserted, Qur'an has inserted 2 intermediate verses, which kind of explaining these is Jesus and what he's saying is true. And then continue with this, which Quran has lots of these examples. The change, I mean, even when we have the prayer of the Mother of Mary that says, I devote my daughter, vow my daughter for the temple, but when the child was born was a daughter, she said, oh, is not a girl, is not like a boy, but God says we know girl is not a boy, and so on. So very often with the narration of story, when God is using their word is first person, then God intervenes too. Okay, sometimes the sentence from God or from Quran. So this change of who's talking is sometimes happening in Quran fast. So here, the verses 34 and 35 is said from at least the mouth of God, perspective of God, and then this is sentence is said from by Jesus, and its continuation when he's a child, and continuation what he was saying. But sometimes some people thought, oh, maybe this is the Prophet Muhammad, completely different context, but doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Allah says, and most commentators doesn't believe, this sentence is not said by Prophet Muhammad because it's part of the combination. And Jesus said, indeed, God is my Lord and your Lord, so worship him. This is straight path. So this part of his saying is a continuation of what he was saying before 33. Like I said, peace to me the day I was born, and the day I died, the day I rise alive. So actually, this concludes what he's saying, because this is a miracle when Mary brought the child, showed to those guys when the child talked, and then the conclusion is them. After they see the miracle, Jesus finished the miracle by saying them. So in Allah Rabbi Barabakum, God is my Lord and your Lord. And that's what he requested from those people, which Psalm Mary with the chant do. فَعْبُدُوهُ هَذَا صِرَاطٌ مُسْتَقِيمٌ. So worship him, and this is the straight path. Okay. But then it says فَاخْتَلَفَ الْأَحْزَابُ مِنْ بَيْنِهِمْ فَبَيْنٌ لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ مَشْهَدِ يَوْمٍ عَظِيمٍ. But these people disputed, different among themselves. Either it could be Christians or it could be Jews, but the factions different among themselves. So what to the faithless at the scene of tremendous day. So, and as Quran other places said, these differences between Jews and Christians regarding Jesus and his nature or what is mother or stuff like that will stay with them to the end of times. Okay, the rest of this, Quran when brings Mashhad Yawm al-Azim, which is referring to Muhammad, is the verses regarding Muhammad. So Quran use every moment to remind us the real deal. What is, we are going to die, we are going to raise, we have to be responsible. Don't be stubborn, don't cover the truth. If you know what is the truth about the Jesus, either side of the story, don't slander his mother, don't exaggerate in Jesus. So verses 38, 39, and 40 are essentially related to Qiyamah. And Quran so started for a while is telling a story 1 to 33, and maybe the stories continue to 36. But then after that, or 37, but kind of at the middle of 37 brings us to the conclusion, which is the main message of Quran, Qiyamah. So God said, but the factions differ among themselves, so what to the fakest at the scene of a tremendous day, how well they will hear and how well they will see on the day when they come to us. But today the wrongdoers are in manifest error. So at that time, it's, if you are wrongdoer, there's no time to compensate. Warn them of the day of regret when the matter will be decided while they are yet heedless and do not have faith. So, these are stuffs about the hereafter. I'm not going to discuss that, but these are important. So allow me to discuss it because I want to go back to our line of story. But these verses are important, and maybe the all said before and after is to be focused on this. So one sign of it says people are still heedless, even at the hereafter, after the miracle of raising up, there because they do not have faith. Still there, indeed we shall inherit. Indeed we shall inherit the earth and whoever there is on it, and to us they shall be brought back. Okay, so the point we are saying, I'm going to focus only to commentary and to save time and also going forward, because the main topic is really left for us to still cover, is 36 and 35 and maybe 34, 35, and a little bit of 36, but I'm not going more than that because this topic is important, but it's not related to the direction we are. Okay. Now, what is the arguments these guys have that these verses are not part of the Quran? Okay, what I'm saying, what they argue is that was not revealed at the same time the verses before and after were revealed, and then they start to play on it. First, they would say, okay, the topic is different, which is, okay, very often in the Quran happens. Even inside these verses, 33 to 40, we see a change. God said commentary about Jesus, then Jesus started to continue to speech, which was from verse 33, and then God goes toward the Qiyamah. So we have three shifts of topic effectively in 33-40. So itself, per itself, is not an argument. Quran has lots of this shift of topics, and then get the conclusion and goes to the next story. We saw the change in the rhyme. I will discuss that, which is not necessarily any indicative of anything. This is common structure of Quran, and in many surahs, rhyme changes, and sometimes it goes new topic, new idea, the rhyme changes, but here also shifted back. The other thing they start to say, oh, these verses have a polemic against Christianity, and this doesn't matches, and this is maybe okay. Mecca and Surah. What is the polemic against Christianity? Is this part? This was the first argument taken. I mean, unfortunately, the belief that these verses are separately revealed, very common, and then okay, even they don't say it was added when it's Jerusalem, but this is sometimes given as an example. which I don't think is an example, but look, we'll see the commentary and also the explanation. But look, وَكَانَ لِلَّهِ أَن يَتَّخِذَ وَلَدًا is like Surah Al-Ikhlas. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ Allah, yeah. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. Look, this is again denying the God having a child. The point I have to mention is that although those verses of Surah Al-Ikhlas rejects the having God having a child or and be born on something else, but it's not necessarily directed to Christians. You know, the Surah Al-Ikhlas is talking to the mushrikeen. I mean, talking to everybody, read it. But direct first primary audience, because it's Mecca, is to the mushrikeen. But also, what? Because they ask I have discussed this before, it's a little bit, take time, I'm not going too much on it. This is one of the first time Quran is explaining who Allah is. Because the mushrikeen had the word Allah for God, but they were mushrik. So this Allah you call, what is the difference? What our understanding Allah? And in early verses, Quran revealed, except this Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, early surahs, Allah doesn't come much. God referred to it mostly Rab. Because the issue of this Allah have different meaning for mushrik. Like now that, look, this translation I have here, many Salafis insist God should be translated as Allah. They don't like to translate God. And I read usually God because I think Allah is a little foreign to English and makes it the foreign God. But they said, no, if we say God, this mindset of Christian is Trinitarian. And when you say God, they confuse it with that. So we need to say Allah. So the same concern at early stages, we have looked at the early verse. Other than the name Allah is very present in the Quran, 2,900 times. But at early verses, early surahs, at early years of revelation, except in Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, you don't see Allah mentioned. It's mostly Rab. And then at some stage, which is Surah Al-Ikhlas may be part of it, God would say, okay, this Allah, what it is. Tell them, Huwa Allah Ahad. Allah Samad. Allah is Mahfuz. Okay. Allahu Samad. Lam yalid, walam yulad, walam yakul lahu, and so on. Okay, so the point is that the Surah Al-Ikhlas is telling you what Allah is and what is not to the mushrikeen. And then distinguishing for them the new religion from what the Christians say, and maybe, although it's very similar to Jews, so in Surah Al-Ikhlas you don't distinguish it with the Jews. But you know, the other name which used to be used by the mushrikeen, by the people in Arabia, the northern part of Arabia usually use Allah. The southern part for a while was using Ar-Rahman, referring to God as Ar-Rahman. And that is at Surah Al-Asra, we have a verse that says, it doesn't matter you call it Allah or Rahman, it's all good names for him. So Ar-Rahman was not used as adjective or attribute of God, but as the proper name of God. And again, Quran for a period, we have it that table in the first lecture of this series. For a period, the Quran will look, the Ar-Rahman is used more frequently for the name of God. So we have Rab mostly, and then Ar-Rahman, and then after a while the Ar-Rahman is stopped, and God is referred as Allah. And now, but you know, when you ask people to convert to a new religion, you need to tell them why you have to convert to your religion, not the other religion. You know, so for example, why? Because if a mushrik wants to convert, it makes sense to convert to Christianity or Judaism, not to a new religion which is very small minority and man from the same neighborhood. There's the cities preaching. So one part Quran is distinguishing what is the image they have from God is from Christianity. So what I'm saying, all coming back to our story, that idea that Allah doesn't choose a child is very early Quran in Surah Al-Ikhlas, and the argument this is okay, polemical against Christianity, and polemic against Christianity couldn't come early, it must be later when they see Christians. maybe in Medina, or maybe later. Why the results they have to go? Okay, all these arguments doesn't fly, but actually this is the early part of the argument. They switch it around, and actually that switching around, I hope I can reach as the really more interesting one. Okay, so let me summarize the argument, and then we go a little bit to tafsir, and then I reject this early argument first. The three argument is this: the rhyme is changing. The other thing they say, if you take the verses 34 to 40 out, it doesn't change the narrative. Yeah, it doesn't change the narrative, but the point is that suddenly from Jesus jumps to Abraham, but Quran never does that. This is one of the arguments they use. Because Quran, when usually finish the story, take a moral conclusion. The stories are not for story. You go to Surah Al-Kahf, you have 3-4 stories over there. The story of Moses and Khizr. You have the story of Fountain, the story of two people to praying, and one of them was have a orchard, and the lightning destroy or something destroy the fruits or the harvest, and the other the Ashab Kahf themselves, they stay in the cave. Every time the story finishes, Quran a few verses have some moral conclusion. So Quran doesn't jump from one story to another story, get the moral conclusion. And these are oral. You tell something not just for the sake of telling story, jumping to a new story, get moral conclusion. So the argument, which is this interjection, if we take it out, doesn't change the narration, doesn't make, because it's not inside the story. The argument with the rhyme is change is per se is not important. I'm showing to you very often happens in the Quran. The argument that this is polemic against Christians, it couldn't be that early, it couldn't be that Mecca, it must be later when the Christians are there. I'm saying you can talk about Christianity, not necessarily toward the Christians, but to non-Christians. And the Jew and the polytheists and other people in Hijaz were very aware of Christianity, because the big empires were there, all Christians. Habasha was Christian, Roman was Christian. They have the fight with Abraham a long time. Abraham wants to force these guys to become Christian. So they didn't want to be Christian. They defecate, or they disrespected the temple he made. And then many of the tribes, some of the larger tribes, already have converted to Christianity, like Tai, which times from it. So it doesn't know about Christianity. It's like people nowadays, for example, you go in some countries, like Middle East, they know all about the Jews, Christians, or maybe other religions. So the arguments are nonsense, really, but okay, because this is raised. But then this is the first line of argument they use, that these verses are added later on. But the point is this. Okay, then they change the argument, which is interesting. But regarding adding verses, let me say, okay, look, Muslim tradition always has the view that, okay, that some verses added to surahs later on, maybe there are Meccan surahs, some Medinan verses added to it. Even they claim in reverse that there are some Medinan surahs, Meccan verses added to it. That's a little bit strange that a verse was revealed alone as not part of it, any surah. But this idea was there. This polemics, Christian polemics, or Western scholarship polemics is pushing it to some limit. And the problem is that these few verses always put as an example. And without thinking, somebody said it and everybody pick it up and repeating it. But till recently, those who push it after some notice, okay, there are problems here, they go another one. But the point I want to show you is this. Okay, yeah, we have cases that definitely verses are added, like doing Surah Al-Muzammil. Look, these verses are regarding Ya Muzammil illa qalila. It's nisfu amal minhu qalila is recommending to do Salat al-Layl. And the verses are small. They have their own rhyme, Sabila, Bila, Tabtila. And then goes to Rasula, Mabila, Shaiba, to verse, all the same length, small, and same rhyme. Then the verse 20, which is the last verse, is long, have different rhyme. So it's completely different nature. This one verse alone is about longer than half of the surah. Is about 2/3 of the surah. So this alone maybe is 1/4 or more of the whole surah, 1/3 of the surah. And it's one verse. And then here, but we have evidence this is added later. This is explaining and modifying the law which is said here. So it wants them here. Sorry, this one. It wants them to really stay awake about half of the night, do the prayer, reading Quran. And then here God says, okay, so we said, I know you cannot do that, so decrease the level. And then, okay, but still per se, because it is long, but but it's very different nature. It is different rhyme, doesn't necessarily indicate this is added later. But look, here is talking about yuqataluna fi sabilillah. He says, because I know you guys are fighting for the sake of God, you cannot stay all night. So look, علم أن سيكون منكم مرضى وآخرون يضربون في الأرض يبتغون المستنزلات. Some of you are fighting because of to getting the God, blessing of God. وآخرون يقاتلون في سبيل الله فاقرأوا ما تيسر منه. Okay, I know those guys are fighting for the sake of God. You're tired, busy. Okay, do as much as you can. Okay, because يقاتلون في سبيل الله is Medina, this is definitely okay. A verse added later to a Meccan Surah, early Meccan Surah, and to adjust Allah, and okay, but all is the time of prophet, and it's explaining something, and maybe deliberately it is not revealed in the style of the early part of the Surah to show his addition. This is the only example, and maybe one second example, but that second example is not as clear as this one too. But the other arguments they do, it doesn't make sense. Look, any other surah of the Quran, you open it up, so khalaq, alaq, and then akram khalaq. The rhyme changes. Ya'lam. So these three are the same. Yatqa stagna. Okay, raj'a. And then, okay, after that, raj'a, yanha sal. Okay, you see, this is the first surah. And then maybe I go to Ibn Shams al-Kawwarat. Look, when it's doing the swearing in the Shams al-Kawwarat, the Najum al-Kadarat, all the way you have those كفرت سجرت زبجت موءودة سولت بأي ذنب قتلت صحف نشرت إذا السماء كشطت. You go, 13, 14, علمت نفس ما أثرت, but then it changes. فلا أقسم بالخنس. This one, okay, we have another one also better than. So it changes. Okay, we have 14 of this form, then another one. كنس أس تنفس. Again, so we have a 14. We have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then إنه لقول رسول كريم. So a 14, 4 and 1. Yeah, all these swearing is there, qasams are there to go this lesson. To exactly form and the meaning change. A block of 14, a block of 4, and a block of 1. Okay, that's the style. That it doesn't make this the same rhyme, because this is the conclusion. This should be stand up. Okay, I maybe this one more is enough. You got the idea. Look, Saja, Zoha, Saja, Gala, Ola, Tarza, Ava, Hada, Agna, Tak, then. فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ بِمَسَالَهُ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ وَمَنَمَتُكَ فَحَدِّثْ. So the surahs happen, some changes happen, but when they order him, the rhyme changes. فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ. And we tell him, you see these, all this stuff, but then because you see this natural events blessing God to you, these are the two moral commands, the two demands.
Dr. Qudsi, sorry to interrupt you. Given your experience, I mean, as you know, we had actually a lecture series relating to this rhyme and these things.
Yeah.
When the rhyme is changing, the concept also changing, or, I mean, let's say like the previous surah you just recited. I mean, when we change from one rhyme to another, is it like the concept or discussion also changing, or not necessarily?
No,
in general.
Yeah, I think some shift is happening, but it's not necessary if the first set are qasams, the second are not qasams, but maybe different time of qasam. Yeah, it's a little bit complex.
I know. I mean, I remember on that lecture series, we came to this conclusion. We never can find a rule that's always applied. But
yes, yes. Yes.
Okay.
But still we'll see. And Saj Quran is more complicated even what after that came. But yeah, there are one of the things there are many different examples. I mean, maybe I finish with this. Look, here we have three structures. And then this also helps to look Baladiyat Safa, Qatha, Sofa, Naqa, Jam'a, this five, which this is a little bit the swearing, the imaging. Then this is the what I want to conclude. You know, Maximu Be, Maximu Alay. You know, you swear to something, but to conclude something, to do something. You know, I swear to for example, my father that I give you back the money. Okay, so the first five is swearing, and then إنه على ذلك لشهيد إنه لحب الخير الشديد. This is the tree, and then this is a little bit different. God warned you. Look, this is the qasam. This is the situation, and He tells them, and then we talk about, we have matlaw Saj and so on. We can get so this tree. So we have a block of 5, 3, 3. Well, I don't want to go to detail, but I'm saying the fact that the rhyme change doesn't make sense. The fact that even it's not, this is we have addition, but doesn't mean this is addition. And then usually Quran has moral conclusion, and then I think because I am okay, let's see what I can do tonight. And then the other thing is this. And then the polemic which they say, I will discuss that, is not makes sense, because I said there are already polemics, because they claim, oh, this is a polemical against Christians. I mean, the argument they say is that, oh, the early parts 1 to 33 is so nice, so matches the Christian view, so respectful of Jesus, and so on. And then suddenly you do polemic. Okay, we have to do the polemic because God doesn't accept Jesus as God. We said all this stuff. I tell you, this child talking the Creator, but doesn't mean it's God. But let's see. But this is the early level of the argument. The second level, which I'm not sure I can reach, is changing. But let's fast go to the commentary of the Al-Mizan. Is this Al-Mizan mentions? Look, if you go, it says first 34, 35 are expositulatory, you know, they're added in between. Expostulatory, they're added in between till the 36 come, and then 36 is a continuation of speech of Jesus. I mean, maybe the only thing I want to say from Al-Mizan, let's go this part, because some of this now is related not necessarily to what my discussion is, but to commentary on these verses which Sunni or other scholars have used. Look, Al-Mizan says قول الحق, which is important. ذلك عيسى ابن مريم قول الحق الذي, because we see the English translator translate قول more closer to kalama, which I don't agree, and Al-Mizan also explained. Look, قول الحق, the saying of truth, is made accusative by something which is implied. That is, I say, the saying of the truth. أقول قول الحق. You know, this أقول is Allah says is dropped, or at least it's the way it says, it implicates that what I said or what is said is truth. And the expression yantaruna, okay, means the complain or dispute with each other. So you know, so look, the saying of the truth without which they dispute. Okay. So you see, God says this is the description of Jesus, which we said before. This is the truth we said, and this is the truth they have disputed about it. The nature of Jesus. On one side, Mary, he was born without father. It was miraculous. Mary was virgin when he's born. But the other side, he's not. So the accusation of Jews, slander of Jews, are not right. But the other side, he's not divine, and so on. Masalahu like Adam. And that is Jesus, the son of Mary, about whom they complain, dispute each other. Some have also said, قول الحق, the saying of truth, means كلمة الحق, the word of truth. That is Jesus, because God called him his word in some other verses, like the verse 4, 170, 1, 345, and 339. كلمة kalamatan min Allah, or so on. Based on this interpretation, قول الحق is laudative. You know, thus it's not about what Jesus said or what the situation is. Just saying, okay, Jesus is from God or is a good. However, Allah says, I agree with him more. However, the first interpretation is supported by God's words elsewhere, which means the same. You know, if you looked at Surah Al-Imran, which the same story is mentioned, the truth from your Lord, so be not of disputers. So what is Quran is saying here? Actually, yeah, it is polemic. They got it right. It is polemic, but it should be polemic. And a Christian already hear it, and it's polemic against the Christian belief for everybody here. The same way we go, Sunnis go against us, or we go against them, we want the new Christian convert, or vice versa. We say, okay, this view of Sunni is wrong, this is correct, or vice versa. So what is God is saying doesn't emphasizing Jesus as Kalamatul Haq. This is Qawl al-Haq. Qawl al-Haq الذي فيه يمتنع, what it said before, what the 33 verses was before, is the true story of all these families. Okay, or and so this part is okay. I think I don't think we need to go more to on it. And then yeah, this part, which okay, again against the Christian view, it is not befitting that God should take himself a son, which we have in the Surah Al-Ikhlas. Glory to be him, and when it was decreed, when he has decreed a matter, he says to it be, and it is. And then this phrase a lot we see in the Quran. And then Allah also added, this is a denial and refutation of the claim that the Messiah is the Son of God. The phrase, when he has decreed a matter, he only say it to be, and it is the proof of the refutation. You know, why it is refutation? Because if it doesn't need to get a son, that's one argument. And it doesn't need to go, and then Allah will explain why we get a son, because usually son for helping us, assisting us. I mean, any example you say, any reason say God needs to have a son, for example, ransoming of the sin of human being on the cross. Okay, God can forgive people, doesn't need this theatrics. His justice is his mercy is ahead of his justice. He can forgive. Anything is if he decides something, he just make it to be realized. So let me just read this because maybe faster to go to the main topic. The word qada, meaning decreed, is only used to indicate the impossibility of their claim. That is because Arabic gives this argument that why God doesn't need a son or child. That is because one generally wants a son for assistance one's daily efforts, yet God has no need for that. He never fails to get what he wants. When he has decreed the matter, he only says it to be, and it is. Further, the son constitutes a part of the Father existence, which is set apart from himself, that gradually raises him until he becomes an individual like him. God has no need for the graduality when achieving his need, nor is there any like him. This is exactly Surah Al-Ikhlas has. Exactly says all this. So this argument, yeah, it's polemic against Christianity, but all I said before, whatever he wants is without any delay or transition, and is never like him. A similar interpretation was presented in the exegesis, and they say God has taken to him a son, glory be to him. But the point is that Surah Al-Baqarah verse chronologically is after Mary, after this chapter 19, and it's Medina. So those guys said, oh, this is too early to God polemically discuss. And okay, this is the only thing, is this suddenly the who speaks changes. We previously was God, but now it's Jesus. And surely God is my Lord and your Lord, therefore serve him. This is the right path. This is joined by the conjunction and to surely I am a servant of God. So it says it's somehow look, Allah says with this this verse is connected to the previous verse 19:30, that part which Jesus was talking. It is part of what Jesus said. Part of the proof of that is exact same verse appearing in the diary. Okay, and then again, people have some disputes that some of Muslim scholars actually thought this maybe is not the saying of Jesus, is the saying of the Prophet Muhammad or somebody else. But the point is this sentence and the one after exactly has come 3 times in the Quran, besides this one, and all from the mouth of Jesus. And then one more time, we have the next verses there too. So the examples is this. One of them, Allah says, Surah Al-Imran, Ayah 51. And so let's read this part. It is part of what Jesus said, part of the proof that his exact same verse appearing in the direct speech quotation of his invitation to his people when his story is told in Surah Al-Imran. There is some Muslim commentators, Sunni commentators said, oh, this may be Prophet Muhammad, but they didn't look at the Quran. The same sentence, exactly 2 more other times, has been said by Jesus. So this is a continuation of his speech. One is in Al-Imran, and similarly Surah Al-Zukhruf, 43, and reads, surely God is my Lord and your Lord, therefore serve him. Exactly. In the right path, but parties among them differed. So woe to those who were unjust because of the chastisement of painful day. This latter part, also the continuation 37 here. Look, the continuation, and parties from among them disagreed with each other, and so woe to those who disbelieve at the saying of terminus day. So what we have here, look, we have this verses 36, 37, which is first Jesus is talking, and then God gets a conclusion. Look, but parties among them. So Jesus, after the miracles, said them, surely God is my Lord, your Lord, therefore serve him. This is the right path. But these people start to differ among themselves. So woe to those who are unjust because of the chastisement of painful day. Okay? Now, this verse one time, this saying one time, you see in Surah Al-Imran. Oh, again, I did a mistake instead of translation. Anyway, this I don't fix it. And Allah Rabbi wa Rabbakum fa'budu hadha sirat al-mustaqim. So this is again repeated by Jesus. You can see here is God is talking about. Jesus is talking. If you go before that, it says that Surah Al-Zukhruf. Again, I mentioned it. وَلَمَّا جَاءَ عِيسَى بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ قالت, then you see in Allah wa Rabbi wa Rabbakum fa'budu hadha sirat al-mustaqim. And this one has a continuation. We have the Surah Maryam, and even the Surah Al-Ma'idah is not exactly like that. But what God, we would discuss this verse 116 in one of the last lectures, maybe the last lecture of the series. But when God is criticizing and questioning Mary, and not criticizing, questioning Mary and Jesus the hereafter, and asks them whether you told people, it was you and your mother, it was you told people to choose you and your mother as a God to worship. And then Jesus said, I didn't tell them. I didn't tell them anything except you told me. And then I told them, and Abudullah Rabbi wa Rabbakum. So I told them this. And if somebody listened to the Quran, we know Surah Al-Imran, Surah Al-Ma'idah is one of the latter ones, would say, yes, Jesus was right. Jesus only told them this. And Allah wa Rabbi wa Rabbakum fa'budu sirat al-mustaqim. So 3 times in the Quran, before Surah Al-Ma'idah, Jesus had said, and Allah wa Rabbi wa Rabbakum fa'budu sirat al-mustaqim. So in any sense, these guys claiming this is polemical or late, it is not, because as I have here, these other verse Zukhruf is also early too. And exactly Zukhruf has the 2 verses of Surah Al-Maryam, which we were reading. Zukhruf, remember, was a complete repeat of Surah Al-Maryam. Al-Imran has one repeat, one of the verses only. And Ma'idah didn't have exact repetition, but a section of it. But you will see these 2 are early, middle Meccan, and the same. So I think I enough stop here. That let's go back to what we really the dispute was. But then the real story starts. I tried to finish it by 9. Look, the story was this guys, which is getting everywhere is distributed. They start to say these verses 34 to 40 in Surah Al-Maryam are different. They're added later. They have a different rhyme. They're speaking differently. We take them out of the story, doesn't change. But taking that story changes. This is not style of Quran, jumping from story exactly without any more conclusion to other one. Changing rhyme doesn't matter anything. Polemical one is not too strong, even polemics. And this polemics has been said before. And why not polemic? Because we're talking about Jesus. When do not misunderstanding happening, neither for Mushrikeen or other people. And these verses, this they didn't check. These verses exactly has come in other verses, other surahs which are different. Because I will see they will argue in this surah as a whole now, later on see, shows too much knowledge of Christianity and it should have been written later. Okay, I think let me stop this early part. I was like, allow me, I go to close to 9, but
yes, please go ahead.
Yeah,
yeah,
because because really want to push one part of this through. Thank you. So, okay, now the real story starts here. Look, this is the theory of Guillaume D. Professor Belgian, Professor I think Belgian, our friends, and Stephen Shoemaker too, also with him. I put Stephen Shoemaker stuff maybe next lecture. There are some views about these two parts of Surah Al-Maryam. Okay. But because I want you to get the whole story in one slide, what is happening here? We have these tweets, everything said, and then I will go through it and explain. We have actually three sides. What is the traditional view, which this Ebionite supremacist is I don't know, is the name, but Allah mentioned it. And Ebionite is the name of maybe the true branch of Christianity, the ones these humbles, Fruitans, or those who not arrogant, Quran referring to them. These are the maybe true follower of Jesus. At the early stage, they called themselves that, and then maybe it's essentially his brother James. If we find time, we'll explain that. Okay, this guy gets some argument. Then this part is Guillaume D. These yellow parts are reading of Guillaume D, which we'll see in a few minutes. And this is Shannon. But look, Shannon and Guillaume D are both Western secular scholarship, and both are secular, and both are reductionists, and both do not believe in the God necessarily Quran is revelation. By the postulate of historical critical method, kind of they reject revelation. I have discussed this in Farsi and I've discussed it in the lecture Quran. Maybe I have to mention it more, but for now, let's accept it. They all look into naturalistic reduction mechanism for the genesis of Quran, and they think, okay, maybe at most it's Prophet Muhammad's thinking ideas, the same way maybe other thinkers, other spiritual leaders do. But the point is this, and this is the interesting part really today, is this. Sean Anthony, note this Guillaume D is pushing through that, okay, this few verses we said something, 13 to 40. Let's put that aside. Let's look at Surah Al-Maryam, 1 to 33, or they extend it to 163. And they say these verses are 1 to 63, as you see here, has a lot deep knowledge of Christianity. And this he will list it, and that I want to show it to you. And the deep knowledge of Christianity, it is much more than comes to the author of these must be a very knowledgeable, true Christian. So this cannot be written in Mecca with some man which doesn't know much about Christianity. Previously, first they started only 13 to 40 was added to Quran later, and everybody of these Western scholars copycatting them. But these two guys now are pushing it in another direction. So he's saying it's not 13 to 34 to 40, it's the whole 1 to 63. And even 1 to 63 minus 34 to 40, because when he puts star, we will see that. He means 1 to 63, take 34 to 40 out of it, and even this part demonstrate a thorough knowledge of Christianity. And this cannot be written in Mecca because there are some specific knowledge that you could not have it until you land in Jerusalem, be in Jerusalem. So this must be written in Jerusalem after Muslim conquest, and this has been added to Quran after Prophet Muhammad. Look, all these guys, these Christian polemists, this is the Quran want to do, make the Quran open canon like Christianity, which is added to it to supply that revisionist emerging canon. Okay, this all going to that. He pushes strongly in that direction. But look, what is this? The Abbayyarite supremacist. conclude. It says secular academia profile. So at the latter part of my talk, will be show you these arguments. This what's here. But this guy says secular academia profiling of the Quran, showing its divine origin. Notice he, means Qiyumdi, posits a second author of the Quran simply because no one in the Hijaz could have access to information of the Quran does, especially not an illiterate man, Ummi Hazrat Muhammad, even though it's in our earliest manuscripts. Yeah, they have some problem with manuscripts too, because all the manuscripts of Quran regarding Hazrat Maryam have more or less the same verse structure, order, although I have to check it exactly which one has which one. But these two very early ones, because okay. But the point is this, and then Shantoni noticed that this Qiyumdi is doing something, maybe is by pushing it, is taking us to a wall that either we have to say this, proving essentially there is the knowledge that Muhammad couldn't know. So then effectively the other side is beyond that wall is divine. So he starts to say, I chuckle when I see how Qiyumdi's rhetorical strategy in this article, which we are going to look at a modified version, newer version, is received outside his circle. He creates a false dichotomy to compel his readers to conclude Quran 19 must postdate the conquest. Much later Prophet Muhammad, after conquest of Jerusalem, added to Quran later on, and come from Palestine. But religionists, he doesn't say traditionalist believers, so on, reads him and conclude it must be divine, which he doesn't like. Okay, now, what a strategy these guys they take, I'm not sure whether we have time. I was thinking to discuss it, but maybe definitely not next lecture. The point I have to say, both have hard problems. Qiyumdi is getting, the point I want to show exactly these parts of his argument, that why this must be written outside Hijaz because no man in Hijaz could know, that is very interesting. That shows how these verses, how deep are. And that's the real part of this lecture. And hopefully in the next 20 minutes, if I can finish it. But then I would have to add, because the story is that Qiyumdi has harder time, because initially they thought the manuscripts are not that old. They were saying no Aaronic manuscripts is the first century, and these are nonsense. But now the carbon dating, all this stuff, limit time for them. Kind of now the conclusion of this academia is also Quran was canonized at the time of Osman. So previously they thought to have enough time after Prophet Muhammad passed away 630 and Abdul Malik 690 or 700. They had 60, 70 years to be added to Quran. They need this long. This, you look into the Gospels. They need large time scale to be written, putting down like hadith. But because of the manuscript evidence, we have Surah Al-Maryam, which really early manuscript the same way, that cannot be added later on. And now they have only a very short time period of 12 years this happened. The time Omar conquered Jerusalem allegedly until Osman dies, or middle of his caliphate, even less than 12 years, which is too short. And then all of it, again, we see is circumstantial. You can think because you don't believe in any divine revelation, and that's the whole idea of that God has some knowledge which is interfering in the history given to a man doesn't know about it. This is your problem, not my problem. But the arguments he used to show these are really particular feature are interesting. Okay, so this is his new version, Quranic Mary and the Chronology of the Quran, and he goes like that. I go faster, but to get the gist of it, but I'll finish by 9. Look, he comes says, if we go to the Quranic story of Mary, we have this peculiar part, which is still stubbornly taken out, though this must be added later on. But now he cannot say necessarily, but he says this is the last part. So he goes, when we go to the story of Mary Quran, and remember the major part was Surah Al-Imran and Surah Al-Maryam. Okay, Surah Al-Maryam is the first. Surah Al-Imran is after, which all we agree. And then these guys claim this is the latest of the latest, which is absolutely nonsense. We said the polemic is there. The polemic is earlier verses, some exactly similar verses repeated in other Meccan surahs, other contexts. So this part, no. But then his argument is not this part is added later on. He focused here. He take this 3440 out, and then he said, if I can show this is later, after Prophet is added, that these are after this, these are added later, and this I claim is after this, these are added. So that's his strategy. So before, that's like before, this is now his strategy to claim this part cannot be written known by the prophet. Okay. I'm not going to go to these parts. So then he starts to make a profile who, let me see, anything I missed here? No. Okay, this one, ignore it. I mean, because we don't have time to go on there. Then he start to get some conclusion that why this guy, the author, must be very knowledgeable. Okay. We might first wonder, okay, he gives some concession. Okay, what is the very feature is important for him that makes prophet doesn't, and this is shoemaker important, the prophet couldn't know about this, is that Kathisma Church. Remember, we discussed Kathisma Church 2 lectures ago, that shrine in Jerusalem, which was even destroyed, recently discovered, has connections to 2 Christian stories. One, the proto-gospel of James and the giving birth in remote place, and also the miracles of the palm tree and the spring, water spring, which is the Pseudo-Matthew gospel. So those are 2 very, as I said, very technical, rare knowledge, which some Christian community had it, and it says it's always related to that shrine. And also even Ukhta Harun, which said that Ukhta Harun was used in a ziyarah for that shrine. So, for example, you have a phrase, some knowledge, you have you go to Shah-Charaq, and then in that Shah-Charaq ziyarah says something about Imam Reza, which you don't have it anywhere else. For example, it says Imam Reza had this feature, for example. I don't know. And then you don't have it in any document, and you only have it in the ziyarah Imam Shah-Charaq. So, I mean, you must, it means, and then, for example, Ziyarah Shah-Charaq was just for Shah-Charaq, not distributed anywhere. So his argument is that there is a piece of knowledge here which is only related to that shrine and in the liturgy of that shrine is came, and Qur'an is using it. So the 4 features which we discussed 2 lectures, these are his main points. One is the remote place, which is like proto-gospel of James, miracle of the stream, which is and also the date palm, which are in the Quran, which is that pseudo Gospel of Matthew, and this Ukhta Harun, which has come in Quran, but they find it. But all these years was ridiculing Muslims. Oh, you guys mixed Mary, the mother of Jesus, with Miriam, the sister of Moses. But now they find it. Oh, in a liturgy of 4th century, 5th century AD, before Islam, the Georgian liturgy is referring to Mary as, or Aaron as brother of Mary. Okay, so this is, they had it, not only Islam was a mistake, they had it, now they put it upside down. Okay, because Quran know about this, and this is correct, and is unique knowledge, nobody could know this. The author of Quran cannot be in Jerusalem, in Hijaz, it must be somewhere in Jerusalem, or travel to Jerusalem. That's another way. It is, of course, not impossible. He's rejecting, he's discussing this part. It is, of course, not impossible that connections connected to Kathisma Church have been scattered in Hijaz. Those stories, through stories narrated by pilgrims, missionaries, monks, soldiers, or merchants, even if it remains a speculative, such an appeal to oral dissemination, which left no traces, remains unprovable and falsifiable. But knowing maybe various traditions, one thing, being able to compose a text like this is another. He said, okay, maybe the stories I've heard by Hijaz, because they read, or maybe Prophet traveled in his trips. You remember Prophet had twice went after Syria for the, at the time of Abu Talib and the time of Khadijah. Maybe he heard it, maybe he has some knowledge, but he said hearing something is not like making a text like this. And this is the feature. So I have to go fast. I have to skip some of his arguments, but you got the taste of it. And then I'm saying how we can use his tool and put it in reverse. Look, he says, first, the author of these parts, minus 34 to 40, must be deeply familiar with Luke 1 and related traditions, which we cite.
The Quran have intertextuality, all the Zakaria, birth of Mary, and Luke 1 to 13, Luke 1, 13 to 32, Qurans, all these we saw previous lectures, we spent a lot of time. It is true. This one I agree with you. It is. He knows the tradition related to Kathisma Church, including Proto-Evangel of James, Paul Miracle, and he presupposes the connection between these independent traditions, which we saw it. I mean, it is the Quran, clearly it is. So these two check marks. And he thinks these are not easy to get. He also, there is another one. He must know a lexion of Jeremiah. We didn't talk about it. Let's keep it. But he says, if Quran knows about lexion of Jeremiah, this lexion of Jeremiah was only known to people in Muslim Jerusalem. Like some things are about when you go to Hajj. Okay, people in the Hajj know exactly what Zamzam corner is, where you have to get water, which stairs you have to go down. Until you haven't, there was a camera of pictures. Until you go to the stairs down, it's 18 stairs to go down the well. Okay, it dates but he says this lexion of Jeremiah. Okay, it's maybe not that old, but it's still before Prophet Muhammad. Okay, for this lection, I didn't explain, but he explains. Okay. He's familiar with other aspects of Jerusalem Marian liturgy and with the Dormition narrative. Okay, these are related to how Mary has passed this world. We didn't discuss it much. In fact, relying on the network of subtexts constituted by Hagiopolite liturgy, this liturgy regarding to the Holy Family in Jerusalem, this provides the best explanation of the most content. He says, if you read this content, this have intertextuality, and then the one who reads this have some hints to this Marian liturgy. Like I said, I say first, okay, to be or not to be. The question is that either to stay in the lecture or leave earlier. It's late now. To finish or not to finish the lecture. I say it like that, you all know I'm talking about Hamlet. To be or not to be. So this is, it says, if somebody Christian, somebody scholar read these verses, clearly knows Quran has some idea of Marian liturgy. Look, these guys the arguments are reversed. They want to push the Quran these parts were written in Jerusalem, but I think they're arguing strongly that the author of these verses only have a deep knowledge of Christianity, which we never notice it. He followed Christian usage in composing a section of Zechariah and John the Baptist as preparation for the section of Mary and Jesus. He says the way this story of Zechariah and John the Baptist connected story of Mary and Jesus must be the style Christians enter in the story. And then he verses these verses. Suggests these verses, so he discusses this. Look, we don't have to discuss, but already we kind of discussed it. Suggests that these verses 1 to 33 is not the outcome of a complex editorial process, which would mix a proto-version of this with an independent proto-version of this. Look, the point was this, because now they are saying, okay, maybe added. But if you are thinking 1 to 63 is added later, why all of it must be written by one guy? Zechariah, and this is a strong argument. This is showed that Surah is very cohesive. The Surah to Maryam has a structure. It says, okay, somebody maybe wrote the story of Zechariah and John, because in the Bible, one is the Luke, that there is nothing in Matthew, and then the other story is over there, the birth of Mary to the Gospel of James. So the story of the Luke and birth of John the Baptist and the birth of Jesus are not packed in the Bible continuously like this. But so maybe there are different authors over there, and different authors read the text, and the texts are edited and then put together. But he said this is not like that. The whole package must be written by one person, because the way it is written is very cohesive and is completely related to the Christian view. It looks at the country as a text with a striking unity, whose organization is shaped by precise intention. And then he says, this one I don't agree with him necessarily. Quran is doing that, but he claims it. So the first four, I agree with him, that these are the features. And the fifth one, he says, although it's a positive one, if it's true. He practices Christian typological exegesis. If we include the section of Abraham, we shall conclude he also knows cycle of Abraham. Then you have to agree. Let me take my word back. Look, the point is this. This typological exegesis is this. the Christians go to the, this one I agree, this one I agree, sorry. The Christians, when they go to the Old Testament, they always want to see something about Jesus. They talk about Adam and Eve, they see something on Mary. They talk about Jonas in the belly of the fish, they say, oh, this is the same similarity with Jesus is buried under earth, okay? 3 days and coming out. So every story in Old Testament is talking or saying or predicting about something about Jesus. Okay, sometimes we Shia do something like to the Quran. We go to the Quran, many often we see the this is Ta'wil. Ismailis have a lot, we Shia Imams have Ta'wil of the verses. This is about Imam Ali, you know. So some of it true, some of it I don't think is right. So this they do typology of Jesus in Old Testament. We Shia some do typology of Imams or Imam Ali in the Quran. He says, if we go beyond verses 14, we go to the story of Abraham, which we didn't. So the reason they keep 463, that the author of Quran is familiar with the cycle of Abraham, and that cycle of Abraham, if you do the typological Christian, so this is Old Testament, typological Christian exegesis on it, is related to Jesus too. So the fact that the latter part of the Surah of Maryam is talking about Abraham is also connected to the earlier part. It's not just talking about two different prophets, but the way it does it is tied them together. We didn't discuss this, so I'm not going to go that. I will finish this by I'll finish 5, 6. He displays an outstanding humiliating talent, being able to merge episodes like the trial of Mary and the presentation of Jesus in the temple in unique narrative using the literary device of Jesus speaking from the cradle. So he thinks this part is some interesting way of doing it, summarizing it at the same time. He knows, therefore, some of the cradle miracle tradition which are attested about Jesus and prophets. The Quran clearly says Jesus talking. More significantly, skills to imply that he has an intimate understanding of a whole area of Christian traditions, some of them widespread, are especially related to Palestine, so he's able to reuse them in a very consistent way, consistent with their original settings, also within the Quranic pericope itself. He has some knowledge of Hebrew, some knowledge of Aramaic. This is conferred by play on the words made on the Hebrew Aramaic on the name of John the Baptist. We discussed that. Hannanan, Meladonna, we discussed that, so I don't go through that, but clearly we know the issue of the name is unique is not because of John, because of how Yahya is unique and all those stuff we discussed in the first lecture. So I skipped this part, but this clearly shows he knows Hebrew, Aramaic, the one Yohanan, and Hannan and Minna, and also the name Yahya. Since the Jerusalem liturgy was in Greek, either he has a good command of Greek. So adjust these verses. Now prophet knows Hebrew, Arabic, and Greek. Since by the Jerusalem liturgy was in Greek, either has a good command of Greek or he belongs to a multilingual circle where some people can translate or explain the Greek liturgy to Greek speakers. One could mention here late antique. Now he has to say, okay, only in Palestinian monasteries, maybe there are people know all these languages. He is certainly familiar with the liturgy genre of Safita. This is a Syriac style. He claims Quranic style is like that. I'm not 100% agree, but he says, look, yeah, you say Ghazal, Ghaside, the type you say, Robai, he says this is style, which is this verses, the way they ride, you know, all the same. I like that. This, okay, I agree or didn't agree, but let's just know it. His knowledge of Christology enables him to write a text of convergence, which could work as a kind of biggest common Christological denomination. Yeah, this is interesting. The way Quran has written it, the way the Quran has told the story of Jesus, Mary, and John the Baptist, and the Zechariah, it is such a way all the main Christian denomination at that era could agree. You know, because if I say something about Imam Ali, I say the first Muslim was Imam Ali. No, that's what he said. No, Imam Ali was child. The first Muslim was Abu Bakr, and then or Zayd, and then okay, what we say? Okay, but what Khadija? No, Khadija was a woman. So even you start to say a story. Simple say the first Muslim was Imam Ali, they raised their hand. So the sectarian conflict came in. So you have to tell a story such a way that they don't raise their hand. Okay, vice versa. If they say the first one is Abu Bakr, we say, well, Abu Bakr because it's male. So, and then we say Zayd, Zayd wasn't free. okay, the way the Quran has told the story, cut the way that all these big sectarian Christians, which I have discussed it in Farsi when we discussed the Sirah, and they could agree. It's not that they all say, I don't agree with it. Because exactly Quran is doing that. This is the bait to attract those. And he has to save all these groups. And they were bitter rivals. They were fighting each other. They disagree with each other strongly. The wars were there. We have Christians joined the Sassanids. The Nestorians were under Sassanid Empire. Christians with the Sassanid. These two were Byzantine, but Byzantine Empire, like Chalcedonians, the Miaphysites were living under control, but they don't like them. Actually, Syriac were like them. Like we have Iran, I don't know what to give examples, but this, and then the way Quran tells the story, all three can agree. It has not used by mistake or anything offensive to one. So he's also, where he less apt, he might have added unwelcome ideas for at least one of the parties involved. He's, of course, also familiar with some of the texts and conditions which circulated a movement. This movement of Muhammad is another story now. Nothing suggests that he realized an oracle or words of Muhammad. This is nonsense. Because this part, we agree. He claims, this is the how you suggest that. Thanks to his intimate knowledge of Christian and more specifically Palestinian Marian Liturgy, he compiled the dialogue from the model of hymns which sung and recited Christian liturgical setting. I don't see that, but he claims the style also was more similar or understanding. Quran had different genres that the Christians in those churches will connect. It's not only a story about the Christianity, the style is. 12. So he concludes, I don't want to take much time. Maybe I can stop here now. But the conclusion is this. They put all this beginning stuff, the features, which we saw there were 12, 13. And they claim, 11. Which some I agree, 8 or 9 would say you're right. But the conclusion is reversed. The Prophet Muhammad could know this. Nobody in Hijaz could know this. This needs a deep knowledge of Christianity, languages, and this knowledge wasn't, and deep familiarity with some stuff in Jerusalem, and this knowledge wasn't existed in Hijaz. Must be some guy that deeply knows those area, and they claim it was a convert to Islam, which lived in Jerusalem, and then he write this, and they added to Quran. But then they used to have 70 years of rule, but now they have only 12 years. And then, and as I said, all the arguments I say, if you definitely say is not a miracle, is not a way, you have the only way to find such a person, which is not existent with this feature. But this is the way the other Western scholarship do not agree. They want to cut on the line of these arguments. I'm not sure how much we have to go. Let me just one sentence finish it. Look, they only say this part of the Quran. They cannot say all parts of the Quran because some other parts of the Quran are early. But they want to open it. They want to open the canon, the word they say is an emerging text, because suddenly a text appeared with this feature in a culture which didn't have any book even. No book. This is the first book. And with this level, it's so puzzling for them. And it's approved. It's like, again, this whole evolution. Suddenly a new species comes, the whole evolutionary process breaks down. And look, I read with this one, but I kind of counter-arguments are given. And there are counter-arguments which are traditionally kind of given. There are counter-arguments with the Western scholarship. Maybe next lecture I go briefly, but I have to see whether we have time for the whole series. If this text was written after the conquest, this is the claim. More precisely, after the conquest of Jerusalem, which might have been placed in 635, 638, many things become clear. Not only do we have a place we can find a possible author or decisive contributor if this is a collective work with this piece, but we also believe a context of interaction between believers, Muslims, or a group of believers and Christians. During the 7th century, it seems that Muslims frequented the place of Christian worship. It was not unusual for them to visit and pray in the Church of Jerusalem. So this is he want to push, but even Western Christians do not accept it because now we have manuscript Quran really finished by 650. You know, it at most give him 12, 15 years, and then none of all the arguments. Yeah, I mean, if you are really reductionist, you have to go through that. But as I said, this is very early. All manuscripts show it. This is cohesive. The Arabic is there. And the features defined shows this text is more deeper. I'm sorry to take your time, but just I want to see what kind of controversies are around here. This a little bit digress us, but I think it was an interesting topic. I will give briefly the arguments from the other side. So that John20 part, which is also I give it from Sinai. Look, remember, there is a triangle here. The Muslim traditionist, which could be Muslim, this Yudi, which is pushing it, this be written in Jerusalem, but the way he pushes it, John20 notice, is making reverse. This proving where text be divine, and this guy is either by ideology or by the postulate they don't believe divine could be there. So now they have to dilute this argument. They have to pull on the rock that these features are not there, or they want to find the mechanism that this knowledge could have been spread in Hijaz. But they have difficulty too. They don't find it now. But the point I'm saying, the feature he saw, the Yudi saw, in this verses, only in this part of Quran, there are many parts, it was unique. I don't think any of us had seen it before. And it needs an expert eye. These guys had it, but they put it in reverse direction. I'm sorry. Let me finish with this verse because I talked some other stuff. At least finish it with the. Sorry. Yeah, we finish with this verse. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قالت الملائكة يا مريم إن الله اصطفاك بطهارك واصطفاك على نساء العالمين يا مريم اقنتي لربك واسجدي واركعي مع الراكعين. Thank you for patience, and I'll stop here.